Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karnalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Lokasankaram Sadasiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Varyantam Vande Guru Parambaram. I was almost covering the preliminary points in my previous lectures. In the entire exposition, there was a presupposition which was not spelled out. Whatever may be the system that we are considering, we have to reckon with the human factor. Given the human factor, we can talk about the philosophico-ethical ethos and all that one. Fortunately for us, Shankara has clearly spelled out the competence of the human being to go through the moral discipline, to go through the spiritual discipline. It is absolutely necessary for us to not only to understand this particular point stressed by Shankara, but also to appreciate it in the context of what is taking place elsewhere in the world, the philosophical traditions of the world. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, there is an account of the theory of creation of the world. How the elements came from the ultimate reality, Brahman. The first element to come, ether, then from ether, air, then fire, then water, and then finally earth. And then other herbs and all that. Then finally came the Purusha. Now it is an important philosophical question why the Upanishad gives an account of the order of creation. And when it starts trying to give, first it explains the nature of Brahman, and then instead of talking about Brahman, immediately it talks about Atman. Tasmat va etasmat atmanaha. From that, from this, that is the self, all these elements came one after another. Even there, the text tries to convey Brahman Atman identity. From that Brahman that is identical with the self, Akasha came, and so on. My interest is not to get into that particular problem, the order of creation and all that. But having set forth the theory of creation, the Upanishads, making a big jump, comes to the human being, the Purusha. Purusha is the human being. No gender distinction is suggested here. And Shankara in his commentary asks a question. why is it that even though after Earth other beings came into existence, the Upanishad immediately jumps to the Purusha? What is the special importance of the Purusha? The human factor. I don't think that this question is addressed by any other commentator the way in which Shankara has done that. Shankara points out, by way of answer to the question, that the human factor is important because of two special excellences that the human being has got. The human being has got the eligibility for the pursuit of knowledge, eligibility for the pursuit of knowledge, and also eligibility for performing deliberately willed action. Not any kind of action, but deliberately willed action. This competence for the pursuit of knowledge shows that the human being has got the power of reasoning. What generally we say, the man or the human being is a rational being. The reason is there. It is a reason which enables a person to pursue knowledge. It is this rational competence, the competence based upon reason, which helps a person to pursue knowledge. And also the human being has got the competence to think of a goal, and in order to achieve the goal, the human being undertakes willed action, determinate action. So, the human being has gone to twofold adhikara. Adhikara for the pursuit of knowledge and adhikara for the pursuit of performance of action. Some Western philosophers have spelled out these two important principles. Yesterday I made a reference to Bradley. His senior colleague was T.H. Green, Oxford idealist. T.H. Green. There were three outstanding Oxford philosophers who formed a trinity: Green, Bradley, and Bosanquet. Great idealists, Oxford idealists. Green, Bradley, yesterday I referred to Bradley, My Station and Its Duties. And the third one is Bosanquet. My teachers used to pronounce the name with emphasis. The last T also should be pronounced Bosanquet. Not Bosanquet, Bosanquet. Green, Bradley, F.H. Bradley, and Bosanquet. T.H. Green says that every human being has got twin capacities, two capacities: reason and will. Reason and will. It is because of the possession of reason, according to Green, that a human being is a moral agent. Because of reason, a human being is a moral agent. You know the implication of calling somebody a moral agent. All that Shankara would say yes when he talks about the adhikara of the Purusha, moral agent. Moral agent is one who is engaged in actions which are conducive to, I'm using the language of Green, to the attainment of perfection in himself and in others. The goal is visualized as perfection. A person can become a perfect being. So that perfection in himself and others. It is not the case that a person pursues perfection in isolation from others. What he does as a moral agent is conducive to the attainment of perfection by others as well as his own perfection, one's own perfection. Therefore, that is the significance of being a moral agent. A moral agent should be free to perform his actions, chosen actions. He claims, therefore, freedom. You should be free. You should not be under constraint. If there is any constraint, it is only the moral constraint and not any kind of external compulsion. He is a free person. He has got freedom. And if you grant freedom, then he is responsible for everything he does because he is a free agent. You hold him responsible for whatever he does. Responsibility. Look at the way in which Green tries to work out the implications of being a rational being. A human being has got the capacity to function as a rational being. Then he becomes a moral agent. To be a moral agent, one should have freedom. And if one has got freedom, one should have responsibility. He is accountable for whatever he does. There is that accountability. And this reason is supported by will. You can will, you can determine. I will do this action in order to achieve the goal. My goal being perfection in myself and perfection in others. Self-realization in myself and its self-realization in others. And he talks about the common good and the individual good. I am trying to project Green, the words he used. Common good, with which my good is inextricably connected. I can't take it out. The more I contribute to the common good, the more I contribute to my personal good. That is how T.H. Green has developed his moral philosophy. On the basis of moral philosophy, he developed his political philosophy, all that he did. Now, Oxford idealism has gone into the background because of other developments. But any day, this Oxford Trinity, Oxford idealists, these three people, Green, Bradley, Bosanquet, They always come into the front whenever we are thinking of Advaita, idealistic tradition and all that. Now I make a quick move to, you want?
When we said perfection, how does he define perfection?
Perfection, as it is when I am functioning with all the limitations of the body and all that, I know that I am imperfect. And in order to be a perfect person, perfection, self-realization are used as synonyms by Green. In order to attain perfection, I must function as a rational being. Therefore, we have to ask the question, do we function as a rational being? A person, as a rational being, one should be able to conceive of a goal. What is the goal? Well, we will say our goal is liberation. And we have to take steps for attaining our liberation. A liberated person is a perfect being. One who has attained self-realization, or one who has become a Brahmajnani, one has become an Atmajnani, one has become a Sthaprajna. A Sthaprajna is a perfect being. A Jivan Mukta is a perfect being. A self-realized person. And therefore, a person who pursues this guidance of reason, projecting a goal, the goal being perfection in himself, in herself, and in others. I'm equally interested in others attaining this perfection. It is not a goal only for me. The goal for me is equally the goal for others. That is also what we say in Advaita. That's why yesterday I said that the discipline, according to Hiryanna, there are two things. The moral discipline, spiritual discipline, which should help a person to develop, to cultivate a kind of detachment. As we move, as we grow in the family, we know that we are attached at one side, we are also trying to detach ourselves from time to time. We don't have to declare, look here, I am developing detachment. We don't say that to the people. The way in which we behave, we show that certain things, all right, I leave it to you. Let me be free from the burden, from that commitment. So there is the detachment, and then you try to go pursue the goal. That is, that ascetic spirit is there. Patriga, this is Tirukkural. Patriga pattatran pattinai. Patriga. If you want to be attached to the goal, you must give up your attachment to the things of the world gradually. And T.H. Green, Oxford idealist, he develops this idea. That's why I said that instead of stopping only with the power of reason, I try to work out the implications of that. To say that you are a rational being is to say that you are a moral agent. To say that you are a moral agent is to say that you will be performing actions, for that you require freedom. If you are guaranteed freedom, it is the responsibility of the society, the political institutions, to guarantee freedom to you. And when freedom is guaranteed to you, you perform actions as you like, as guided by your reason. Then you are responsible for what you do. Accept responsibility. Don't claim freedom without responsibility. All those implications are there when Green tries to work out the twin capacities. The twin capacities. The capacity for reason and the capacity for will. That is what Shankara says. jnana karma adhikara. That is a preliminary. You reckon with that so that you can talk about the religio-ethical ethos and all that one, philosophico-ethical ethos. Is human being capable of pursuing that goal? Yes, because of the true competence. Now from Green, I make a big jump to Habermas. I made a reference to Habermas. I think Habermas is still alive. I met him once in a seminar in Seoul. He's still alive. Habermas. Date of birth, 1929. My date of birth. Year, 1929. Habermas. Habermas talks about the communicative competence of the human being. Communicative competence. Communicative competence. Communicative competence of the human being. That is something great. We have got the communicative competence. Communicative competence presupposes what Shankara says. Rational competence. If you are a rational being, then you have communicative competence. You can articulate your views. You listen to the views of others. Yesterday I talked about discourse ethics, how there is a need for dialogue, and dialogue, what are the implications of dialogue. So he talks about communicative competence. And the communicative competence requires the power of reason. What is his point in saying that I got the power of reason unless I engage myself in action? Therefore, Green gives a complete picture that you are a moral being, moral agent. Therefore, you have to perform actions. For performing actions require freedom. Freedom involves responsibility. With all that you function, you decide what you should do to attain perfection in yourself and perfection in others. Look at the way in which one idea involves the other idea. So you have different pictures. Philosophers are not speaking in multi-languages. They speak sometimes the same language. They convey the same idea. Not that the West is entirely thinking in terms of what. There are great people in the West who have been thinking in the same way as we do in the Indian tradition. Just as in the Indian tradition also we have got different ways in which we approach the problem, even so in the West. I stop here because this will complete the picture with regard to what I have been telling about the preliminaries, how we have got the different systems, āstika and nāstika, and why this kind of a classification? Is it chronological or is it conceptually formulated classification? Is it not chronological? But there is a reason why we talk about first Nyaya, then Vaisesika, Sankhya, Yoga, Mimamsa and Vedanta. Any question now? Now, any question? So that I may take up the next problem now.
Communicative competence is also found in species also.
Communicative competence? In
Other species of
that we don't know. That we don't know. And they generally operate on the basis of instincts. And the power of the instincts in the animal kingdom, in the other beings, that is something remarkable. Probably they do have, for example, sometimes when we see nature and all that in the movies, they say that the whales, the sharks, they are able to communicate with one another. They may be having all that. Even in our tradition, we say that there were some people who could understand the language of the birds and all that one. That is at one level. And I don't think that we are able to have communicative discourse with the other beings, not even with the angels. Some people claim, but we are doing philosophy only at the ordinary level, not at the angelic level or at the level of the animals and all that one. We leave alone the angels, we leave alone for obvious reasons the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. All of them are jivas. The word jiva is applicable to any living being. And don't think that it's only we are jivas. We are jivas. But at a particular stage in the evolution, now we have started with the problem of the human beings. Not we ignore the problems of the rest of the world, rest of the living beings. So, communicative competence, you and I have. You are able to put a question to me. I understand, I reciprocate to you. Because you are a thinking being, you have got a rational being, I am a rational being. Any other question?
What it means to be āstika? You mentioned that some of the darshanas are āstika.
Huh?
Āstika darshana. And you made a reference that it is not necessary to believe in God to be an āstika while specifying the categorization of darshana. So, and then some additional question is that why Charvak and Buddhism is not put as āstika darshana?
Why Charvakas and Buddhists are not?
Put in āstika category. And the first question is, what is it to be āstika?
The word āstika is used in the sense that one who accepts the Vedic authority. Acceptance of the Vedic authority is the most important criterion for being called an āstika. And therefore, by implication, anyone who does not accept the authority of the Veda will be called an āstika, Nastika. Now, the Buddhist, the Jain, the Charvaka, they do not accept the authority of the Veda. Therefore, they are put together in the category called Nastikas. Then if you consider the 6 systems of Indian philosophy, the orthodox systems, the āstika systems, as I said, the Nyaya has not rejected Veda as a source of knowledge, as a pramana. Sad-darsanas accepts. Vaisesika, Shabda Pramana is subsumed under perception. Sankhya accepts Shabda Pramana. Veda also it accepts. So also Yoga. Mimamsa also accepts Veda Pramana. Even though it doesn't does not have a place for the Creator God. That is the reason. It is not the acceptance of God, but it is the acceptance of the Veda that decides whether a system has to be called āstika or nāstika. Am I clear? Huh? But the difficulty is this one. The philosophical systems, Buddhism, Jainism, or even Charvaka, did not develop in a vacuum. Already the Vedic tradition was, the Vedic texts were there. They accepted some of them, they rejected some of them. There may be here and there elements of even the Charvaka dimension in the Vedic texts. It is considered to be a philosophical system, and every traditional classical philosopher has paid attention to what the Charvaka has got to say. That means that there is this kind of a dialogue, discourse with even the Charvakas. They are not untouchables. In the classical systems, their philosophical views discussed and rejected. Yeah.
Are you going to raise?
Huh?
Are you going to raise prasnas rather than ati-prasnas? My first question is, why Brahma decided to be Saguna Brahma?
Why Brahman?
Why Brahma decided to be Saguna Brahma? Why Brahma decided to part away from himself, to reduce himself as a jiva, from Purna to Amsa, from Almighty to weaker self?
Why don't you put questions one by one? Because all these questions arise from the first question, I believe. Why Brahman? Frame the question, they say, in the way you want to. Why Brahman?
Why Brahma decided to be Saguna Brahma?
Why Brahman decided to be Saguna Brahman? 1 minute, 1 minute. He did not decide to be Saguna Brahman. There is no volition on the part of Nirguna Brahman, because you say it is Nirguna Brahman. Nirguna Brahman is incapable of any kind of volition. If it is capable of volition, volition will be meaningful only if it is capable, if it has got desire. Desire, this is a causal nexus, causal chain. Desire, first cognition, then desire, then volition, and ichchati, nyayate, ichchati, pravartate. One should have first cognition. Then as a result of cognition, one develops desire and the other one aversion. Then you are engaged in action. So, janati, ichchati, pravartate. Put it any way you like. And the concept of Nirguna Brahman excludes all of them. That's why you say it is in Nirguna. Nirguna Brahman did not will, did not desire, did not will to become Saguna Brahman. Then how did Saguna Brahman arise? How is it that we talk about Saguna Brahman? It was the part played by Maya. Then you will ask the same question. Why did Maya play this part? Why did it play this part? Is it a mischief maker? Is it even? See, it would have kept quiet. But it won't. That is its nature. It is, at the same time, it is not. The way we explain traditionally Maya is Yama Sa Maya. That which is not, that is Maya. Even without being there, it functions. When did it start its functioning? We tell that type, we say, the child as it grows up, the third year, the fourth year, it becomes mischievous and all that one. And Maya, it doesn't have any birth. It is anadi. Even though it is anadi, it has an end. It can be put an end to. And so it has got a peculiar status. It's something ununderstandable. And therefore, what it does is, it divides this Nirguna Brahman into two, Jiva and Ishvara. Once it starts functioning, don't ask the question when it started functioning. We cannot answer. Why? We cannot answer. But we can give some kind of a plausible answer. Maya is not said that bad. And in other traditions, for example, in the Vaisesika tradition, they say, Maya is also helpful. And by being helpful, somewhere it is there. It is responsible for, because Nirguna Brahman is there, of no use to us. It has nothing to do with regard to the Vyavaharika stage. And therefore, it thought that why should I be keeping quiet? Divide it into two, Jiva and Ishvara. Once the division has taken place, the entire world is there. The world of animate and inanimate beings. Don't ask the question why with regard to Maya. No answer. Then the other series you have, do they come up in this or still it remains? The first question, if it is answered, the rest. That's why the Advaita says, there are 6 entities which you accept as anadi. Because the Advaita need not construct a system. But for the benefit of the people, the Vedic text itself has constructed a system. There are many passages in even the Vedic texts. Srevati, you must come to me. Sakamayata Bhagusyam Prajayayati. That means that it is not Nirguna Brahman, but already it has become Saguna Brahman. Prajayayati. It desired, may I become many. It desired. From the context, you have to decide that it is not Nirguna Brahman, it is Saguna Brahman. That's why, in the analysis I have given, the commentarial tradition is very helpful. Probably you may think there are good intentioned readers who would try to read this one. Oh, here it says Brahman. Sometimes when it uses the word Brahman, contextually it may be Ishvara. We have to find out contextually whether the reference is to Nirguna Brahman or whether it refers to Saguna Brahman or Ishvara. The best help we can have is only from the commentators. Now, in the analysis I have given, the synopsis I have given, when I was talking about the commentarial tradition, I did not go into the details because I have given you in writing. The commentarial tradition is guided by several factors in its interpretation. There is a text. You can locate easily commentarial tradition. How the commentators try to interpret a text. There is a given text. All of us read the text. We buy a copy of the Upanishad available at cheap price, Ramakrishna Math. Any Upanishad you can have with a commentary or without a commentary. So there is a text. The text occurs in a certain context. There is no isolated text. The text comes in a particular context. And the text says something in the context, meaning of the text, or a declaration of the text. The text says something in the context. Take particularly Tattvamasi, Mahavakya. You can't take the Mahavakya in isolation from the context. It is the context in which there is the instruction of the teacher or the father to the son. The teacher here, the father himself plays the role of the teacher. 6th chapter, Chandogya. The father Uddalaka addresses his son Svetaketu. So in the context you have the Mahavakya Tattvamasi. You should not take that sentence in isolation and try to say, I am giving the meaning for this text. You can't give, because you don't know the context. The context is very important. And in the context, this Mahavakya occurs not once, but 9 times. It is not as if that the Upanishad wastes its time and energy by repeating the same thing. It is not repetition. At every time, there is a progressive development of the ideas in understanding the meaning of the text, Tattvamasi. So in the context, this text has to be taken, and then it conveys some message. That is the meaning of the text in the context. And tradition says, yes, tradition says, this is the meaning of the text. Tradition means the commentators, they tell us, oh, this is the meaning of the text. Probably you may have to take into consideration other texts. And as you know that we classify the Upanishad texts into 2 broad categories, Avantara Vakyas and Mahavakyas. Subsidiary texts and the Mahavakyas. Subsidiary texts are very important. They prepare the ground for you. And then the Mahavakya. But even with regard to the Mahavakya, my teacher used to say, Kalyana Sundara Shastrigal, he used to say, don't think that you can just take up any Mahavakya and then say that one. There is a logical order. Logical order. If you say that there are only 4 Mahavakyas, okay, once again controversy. Some say there are 6 Mahavakyas, 5 Mahavakyas. At any rate, 4 Mahavakyas, all of us accept. There is an order. I am Atma Brahma. Prajnanam Brahma. Tattvamasi. Aham Brahmasmi. This is the order. You try to develop it in this order, it becomes meaningful. I am Atma Brahma. This self is Brahman. Then there is a doubt. You say, this self, I am Atma, demonstrative pronoun, this self is Brahman. Then the disciple has got a doubt, what does it mean? The demonstrative pronoun, this refers to the person concerned, this self, I am Atma Brahma. Then the definition of Brahman is given, Prajnanam Brahma. Prajnanam Brahma. It is of the nature of knowledge. Then Tattvamasi is not only this self is Brahman, which is Vijnana Swarupa or Jnana Swarupa, Tattvamasi, you are also that. Upadesha Vakya. Then Anubhava Vakya, Aham Brahmasmi. Now, this text occurs in a particular context. So, there is a text, there is a context, there is a meaning for the text in the given context. Tradition says this is the meaning of the text, and then you are the receiver. You are the reader, receiver at the present time. How do you receive it? And have you prepared yourself for the study of the whole thing? If you are not prepared yourself mentally for that, the study of the 6th chapter is of no use. You read it any number of times. It's not a storybook, fast reading, quick reading. And in 2.5 hours journey from Madras to Delhi, I see some people finishing one big novel. Over. They just put it there in the pocket for the benefit of the next passenger. They go away. They don't have to carry it. And then when I go and sit there, I find there is a book. Not even 2 pages I could read, because I am capable of reading that fast, and also storybooks. Bestseller is there. Now, how do you respond to the text? That is the most important thing. How do you respond? It should be a responsive response. It can't be just a casual. Yes, the Upanishad says, I am that. You are that. Then it means it is just like any other book. And it is here our commentarial tradition is of great value. And somebody, Gadamer, a contemporary of Heidegger, a contemporary of Habermas and others. Gadamer lived for 102 years, I told you. One who became famous by one book, Truth and Method. He tells us the importance of interpretation of the text. When I read it, when I read Gadamer, I get a new strength with regard to our own interpretative tradition. We have got principles for interpretation. They talk about hermeneutics. The discipline of hermeneutics started with the biblical interpretation in the West. Here we have got interpretative methods. Mimamsakas have contributed a lot. The great contribution with regard to the interpretation of the texts has been provided by the Mimamsakas. Most important thing, leave alone the other side of the contribution. And therefore, we have got a text, and I have arranged these commentary because there was a question last night in the Satsanga. I say the basic work is there, the Sutra work. For every system there is the Sutra work. Then the Bhashya is the first level commentary. I say first level commentary. First level commentary. Then it is followed by Vartika. That is the second level commentary. So, Sutra work, then the Bhashya, the basic work, first level commentary, second level commentary, then we have got Tikas. Commentaries, sub-commentaries and all that one. So the tradition, the commentarial tradition goes like that. In the Nyaya, in the Vaisesika, in the Sankhya. The Nyaya, I referred yesterday to the Nyaya Sutra, then the Bhashya Vatsyayana, then Vartika by Udyodhagara, then Tika on that by Vachaspati, then Parisuddhi by Udayana. Am I right? Udayana. Parisuddhi. In the Mimamsa tradition we have like that. In the Advaita tradition we have Sureshwara, Vartikakara. I was telling some people yesterday that a Vartikakara, one who writes a Vartika plays an important role. Important role. And free criticism is provided to him. Free criticism. A Vartika work can repeat what is contained in the original, Ukta. It can supplement the missing elements in the original, Anukta, what is not stated, what is stated, Ukta, what is not stated, Anukta, and then after stating the original, supplementing it by what is not stated there, the Vartikakara can critically examine the whole process, express his view, provide an alternative interpretation. Without stopping with that, Sureshwaracharya says, that is an interpretation given by Shankara, my master. All the time, my master, he will say, my master, this is my interpretation. He would have kept quiet, but he goes one step further. Of the two interpretations, accept my interpretation and not that of my master. Ukta, Anukta, Durukta, Chintanam. Chintanam, because earlier we have talked about Chintanam, meditation, the process of contemplation. And the process of contemplation, it goes to the extent of examining the text very carefully. He feels that another interpretation is better than that of the master, Shankara. It is no disrespect to the master. In the tradition, Sureshwara is considered to be the authentic spokesman of Shankara. Others are kept aside. There is something important, probably because he came from the Mimamsa tradition. Quite aware of the Mimamsa tradition. It is no ordinary conversion. It is what my teacher used to call, it is a kind of a spiritual baptism. Spiritual baptism. He has to go through fire of baptism. And still, other disciples were doubtful about the credibility of Sureshwara. Because still the old Vasanas may come in. Vasanas of the Mimamsaka may distort. Therefore, he was not allowed to write a commentary of Vartika on the Bhashya, Sutra Bhashya. Then he was allowed to write a commentary on Taittiriya Bhashya, Brahat Vartika, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, on Sambandha Vartika, and then Brahat Vartika, and then an independent work, Naiskarmya-siddhi. It's not a commentary on anything, independent work. So that is a greatness of the tradition, how critical our ancestors have been. It is not just telling the story, repeating the story like that. Best example, Vartika. I think, may I proceed? Huh? You had. Okay.
On day one, you started with Panchadasi Jiva Srushti and Ishvara Srushti. You were talking about the realistic to the realism. And there was three classifications that you are given. Realistic, idealistic, or idealism, and then pragmatism you are given. But what is pragmatism?
Now, realism, I think it's clear now. Philosophically, we say a certain system or school or a thinker's ideas that can be called realistic view or realism if the system accepts the existence of external things such as the tree, the table, mountain, ocean, stars, external things outside the knower. I am the knower, you are a knower. In addition to you, there are things which exist independently of you. You are not responsible for them. You may see them because they are there. You don't create them at the time of seeing. Already they are there, you see them. They exist independently of you. Such a position is called realism in philosophy. Idealism, there are different, realism also, there are different views of realism. Neo-realism, critical realism. I don't go into all that, it's not necessary. Idealism is the view according to which, even though there are objects in the external world, the objects are the projections of the mind. Projections of the mind. Or that they exist is known only through the mind. There is a kind of a dependence of the object, dependence not for its existence, at least for its knowing. If I am not there, how do I know? So between the two, more importance is given to the knower, the cognition of the knower. And in terms of the cognition of the knower, you say that this is a tree, this is a table, and all that one. That is one kind of idealism. An extreme form of idealism would be that only ideas, only consciousness exists, nothing else. Well, you may say that they are all only appearance, they are not real. That is idealism. Then pragmatism is a view which says that any ideas, any piece of knowledge or information you have will be judged to be true only if it helps you practically to do a certain thing. That is the practical efficiency. Supposing there is a pinch of white substance kept on the table, dining table. You don't know whether it is sugar or salt. You take a pinch and then put it in your lips. It is salty. Oh, you decide. Therefore, your cognition of it as white, small crystals, you suspect that it is salt. And then, therefore, your suspicion is confirmed by the pragmatic test. Take a bit of it, you find it is salty, therefore, you won't put it into your coffee. That is a pragmatic test. That is to say, any idea is right, desirable to have that idea, if it is practically efficient. In our tradition, we say it is artha kriya karitvam. Practical efficiency. It is practically useful. If it is not practically useful, how can you say it is true, it is good? That is pragmatic test, pragmatic view. In our lives, we are very often pragmatists. I don't care for that. What if you say, sir, it will be very helpful to you, keep it in your home. It is a good preventive of the mosquitoes and all that one. All right, I will have it, you would say. Then even you will consider other factors. The smell should be agreeable to you and all that one. I will come to these three once again today in some other context when I am going to talk about knowledge and all that. So, realistic view, idealistic view, pragmatic view. Realism, idealism, and pragmatism. Vijnanavada is a kind of an idealistic school in the Buddhism.
When explaining, can you also give Sanskrit equivalents of these terms because they mean or they communicate much more to us?
I'm giving.
Like realism is
Realism, it was very difficult sometimes. Because the English terminology, how do you translate this idea, Revati?
Nyaya Vaisesika, they are called realists, no?
Yeah,
We have to understand that they are the Nyaya Vaisesika.
Right. See, I can put it this way.
Sarvastikvada, something like that. So at least with the reference to idealistic schools, we can say Sarvastikvada.
We can say that one. How do you explain realism in the way in which I explain now? It affirms the existence of objects independently of the knower. You have anything?
Anyata sattavada.
All right, I have some.
Swatantra sattavada.
All right, Swatantra Sattavadam. I don't say we don't have any explanation. We don't have explanation. We have sometimes we have got exact words. Wherever it's necessary, I am giving you. The only thing is, Revati can speak in Sanskrit. I can't speak in Sanskrit. But I have got some efficiency. I am a student of philosophy. I studied the text. I can't speak to you in text. When Shiva talks to me in Sanskrit, I say stop. I can understand. I can't reply to you. We are not being trained. That's why I seek the help of Revati here. Some equivalence we will give you. Most of the equivalence we give you, we have. It is for the equivalence we are now going to the, for example, pragmatic test, artha kriya karitvam. We have that one. Like that, we will give you. Wherever I am deficient, you try to compensate. In many places, you may not be able to do because it's we have it decidedly an advantageous position. I am speaking with regard to me. Oh. You mean with regard to the Mimamsa or Mimamsa? There is Artha Sangraha. Just as Artha Sangraha. Author I don't know now. Artha Sangraha. Just as in Nyaya we have got Tarka Sangraha, we have got Artha Sangraha in the Mimamsa system. Mimamsa Paribhasha is a smaller book with a good translation. And advanced level. Artha Sastra and Mimamsa Paribhasha. Mimamsa Paribhasha, you find the Ramakrishna Mission translation, small text, ideal, very good. Krishna. We'll go and then we will come back. Now, I have already done some preliminaries with regard to the Nyaya system. I have been talking about it. I have given the classification. I told you that the Nyaya system, how old is that? Very difficult. And Indian mind is always weak with regard to chronology. But historians try to work out the chronology. I've been telling you that between Nyaya and Vaisesika, they say Vaisesika is older. Probably most of the systems came almost at the same time. Almost at the same time. Most of them. Maybe towards the 1st century BC or the 2nd century BC or the 1st century AD, 2nd century AD. The formulation of the systems in the Sutra work, all the formulations have taken place. And these systems have not come into existence all on a sudden. There must have been a lot of discussion. Finally, they have crystallized it and then composed the Sutra work. And for the Nyaya Sutra, you have got the commentary, you have got the Vartika, you have got the Tika, you've got Parishuddhi, all that minor works. Then in the Nyaya, we have got two traditions, Prachina Nyaya, ancient Nyaya, and Navya Nyaya, modern Nyaya. And then an attempt has been made to synthesize the two. For example, Tarka Sangraha is the result of such a synthesis. And you have a taste of the Navya Nyaya when you are listening to the lectures of Revati. And the impact of the Navya Nyaya is to be found even in Advaita. Later on, when they have to go into all kinds of sophistications in the polemical works, they have to make use of the language of the Navya Nyaya. Now, the Nyaya system, I have shown in my analysis, recognizes 16 categories, padarthas. The term that is used is padartha. In English, we translate it as category, not literally the meaning. Literal meaning does not hold good here. Padartha. It is not the, don't split it into artha and all that one. That is the meaning of the word, padartha, normally. Here it is used in the technical sense. With regard to an object of knowledge is called the padartha. Anything that is known is padartha. It need not necessarily be a physical object. Anything, it may be a concept that is known, an idea that is known, a relation that is known. For all that, the general term that is used is padartha. Not just a physical object. It is also padartha. But even an ideas, a relation, a generality, a genus, all that can be called a padartha. The mode of argument you have, the kind of an argument that you have, that also may be given padartha, term padartha. So you just look at the list. Some of them are really important for our discussion, some of them are not. I given under item 3, the entire Nyaya philosophy is an elaboration of 16 padarthas. I say philosophical topics, philosophical categories. Philosophical topic. They are pramana, pramana. Pramana is a source of knowledge. Pramaya, an object of knowledge. So all these are the categories recognized, known, admitted by the system. Pramana, Pramaya. Samshaya is doubt. When you are not able to know the nature of any object presented to you, and you are doubtful whether it is this or that, that is what we call samshaya, doubt. Prayojana, purpose, the purpose to be achieved. That's why I say that the purpose to be achieved is called a padartha, not necessarily a physical object that is known. Drishtanta. Drishtanta is an example, usually we say. Usually, whenever we want to convey in an effective way, so that the principle can be understood, we will give an example. We give an example. Supposing you say, wherever there is smoke, there is fire. It is a principle. Now you give an example. Look at the kitchen. Even in the modern kitchen, there will be smoke. There is fire and there is smoke. So, Drishtanta, Siddhanta. Siddhanta is a position finally arrived at, the final point of view. Avayava, parts. Here it is a reference to the parts of Anumana. When you construct an argument, which is called Anumana, we call in English inference, anumana, inference. Inference of these various kinds. That anumana consists of vakyas. Avayavas, propositions. Yeah, we use the word proposition, statement, proposition. Here they use the word avayava. Inference we call, for example, in the West as syllogism, syllogistic reasoning, syllogism. Inference we use the word, avayava. More about that when we take up the pramana. Tarka. Tarka is not just merely argument, it is what is called hypothetical argument. Tarka is hypothetical argument. The meaning of tarka is just argument, but here it is used as hypothetical argument. Hypothetical argument. Even if it rains heavily, the classes will take place. Even if it rains heavily, the classes will take place. It rains heavily. Next statement, it rains heavily. Therefore, the classes take place. If you work hard, you can pass the examination. There is a condition. Only when you fulfill that condition, then you can get through the examination. You have not gone through the examination, you have failed the examination. Therefore, I conclude that you did not work hard. This type of argument, hypothetical argument, conditional argument, hypothetical or conditional argument is called tarka. This is very effective. Later on, when I talk about vyapti and getting vyapti jnana, I will tell you how this is made use of by the Nyayika. Tarka is not just argument, but hypothetical argument. In a hypothetical argument, you will always start with a hypothetical statement, a conditional statement. If P, then Q. P, therefore Q. No P, no Q. But there is a conditional statement. If P, then Q. Then Nirnaya. You decide, you determine finally this is such and such. This is the case. After long discussion, you say that the blackboard is white. I convince you that it is white. Sometimes it happens like that. We have to. And modern logicians are fond of this type of nirnaya method of argument. The blackboard is white. The blackboard is a thing. Second statement, the blackboard is a thing. A thing is an object, we know. Whiteness is a color. It is also several statements. Finally, we say, therefore, we conclude that this blackboard is white. The surface of the blackboard is white. Wonderful, wonderful way. I'm not caricaturing the whole thing. It is a big discipline in which I am not interested. Because you give several steps in the argument, finally to go back to the initial statement, therefore the surface of the blackboard is white. First I say that one blackboard is white. But if I am doubtful about the whole thing, then I can go through a process of argument, therefore finally it is white. Nirnaya, final ascertainment. Vada is an accepted mode of argument. I think if you Murali Madhavan says, Vade, only when through Vada, he said, he quoted, only through Vada, finally you can come to, Vada is helpful to Chintana, finally arriving at the final position. It was wonderful talk. Vada is an accepted mode of argument because subsequently it will refer to the unacceptable modes of argument. Vada is good. Jalpa. Jalpa is a wrangling. Just to score a victory. Just to score a victory. You want to, it is usually adopted by the lawyers. I asked Vishwanathan, Vishwanathan, have you stopped beating your wife? Answer the question, yes or no. No? So you have been beating the wife area, now you have stopped. You say yes, still you continue. My lord, he is harassing his wife, and therefore the court should decide about the appropriate judgment for him. Putting a leading question, in logic we say leading question. You put a leading question, which in whatever way you answer will catch you. Because I am only interested in scoring a point against you. This is one mode of argument just to win a victory. You don't care for the truth or anything. Jalpa, Vitanda, Vitandavadam. You know what it is, Vitandavadam. Summa pechukku solradhu, sandakku varadhu. Hetvabhasa. They are all logical fallacies, inferential fallacies. There is something wrong connected with the hetu. All problems centering around the hetu. Hetu is the linga or the reason or the middle term, whatever term, we will come to that later. Hetvabhasa is logical fallacies, inferential fallacies, not perceptual fallacies. That is different. What is that then? Vitanda, Hetvabhasa, Chala, Chala. Sometimes we take advantage of the ambiguity of the word. Ambiguity of the word. Words are ambiguous. Traditionally, they give the Navakambala. Nava is new, one meaning, and Nava is also 9. You have Navakambala? No. I got only a new Kambala. The 9, not 9. It is playing with words. Some people are very keen on that, to play with words. It's not an argument, accept it. Then jati. It has nothing to do with the caste or anything. It is used, not even a class feature. Jati here refers to a mode of argument in which you try to present a case by means of an example. Sometimes it may be a wrong example, a wrong analogy, or it may be a right analogy. Any general principle which you want to have must be supported by means of an analogy. It's a proving instance. Sometimes it may not be a proving instance. You make it appear that it is a proving instance. That is technically called a jati. It is an unfair way of replying to an argument by making use of an analogy. Sometimes we say, we make a general statement, generalization. We try to support it by giving just one instance. South Indians are always clever and smart. Look at Balasubramanian. South Indians are very smart and smart within inverted commas. Look at him. If you think that it is not enough, you can also consider his brother, Venkataraman. They belong to the same stock. I given an example, a general principle supported with an example, not the right mode of argument. I have chosen an example convenient to me. You can refute it by choosing another principle and giving an example convenient to you. Jati. And then what is there is left out? Jati Nigrahasthana. Once again, it is taking advantage of the misunderstanding, analogy, argument, misunderstanding, or non-understanding. These are all the ways by means of which we try to score a victory. Accepting vada and the method of argument by means of reasoning, inference. But anyhow, all these are there. And remember, just imagine, here is a very ancient system, 200 BC, 100 BC, or 100 AD, it doesn't matter whether you push it before BC or push it back. I don't know whether you have heard of a great continental thinker by name Jaspers. Pronunciation Jaspers. Am I right? It's a German word. Not Jaspers, but Jaspers. He talks about, he has written something on, he's a philosopher, psychoanalyst and all that one. He talks about pre-axial period in history and axial period in history. Pre-axial. And axial period. He puts 500 BC as the dividing line. 500 BC as the dividing line between pre-axial period and then the axial period. During the pre-axial period, before 500 BC, there were prophets and not philosophers. There were prophets of various kinds. And therefore, you find that clear methods of argument, clear methods of reasoning, all of them were not there. I don't go into the details. In some other context, I will occasion to go into the details about the distinction between the pre-axial period and the axial period. But the dividing line is 500 BC, according to him. We can accept that fairness in suggesting 500 BC as a dividing line between the two, given by Jaspers. Now, the reason why I am making reference to this is this. After 500 BC, if you look at China, India, and a good part of West Asia, what we call Middle East, there is an emergence simultaneously of a kind of an awakening where philosophers have played an important role, not just prophets. The role of the prophets is over. The role of the philosophers. And that kind of critical thinking, rational thinking has taken place, has emerged after 500 BC. That is true in China. Great philosophers were there. Confucius, Tao, all the people. In India, in Middle East, up to the Mediterranean area. And after 500 BC, all, for example, when we are referring to the various sutra works, maybe one century earlier, 1 century later, they emerged. Though for the purpose of classification, we have done like that, Nyaya, Vaisesika, Sankhya, Yoga. That's the question you asked me. So, imagine that such a clean, neat classification could have been given in the Nyaya system. We admire the way in which Aristotle has given his categories, Aristotelian categories. Substance, quality, action, all that he has given. the same way as what we have done in Vaisesika philosophy. In the West, in recent times, there was an Oxford philosopher, I think he's alive, Strawson. I think he's still alive. Strawson, pretty old maybe. Many of the outstanding Indian philosophers today have been trained by Strawson in Oxford. He talks about what is called descriptive metaphysics. Descriptive metaphysics. Descriptive metaphysics. Aristotelian metaphysics is descriptive metaphysics. You prepare a list of categories. Categories, you know the word. Padarthas, objects of knowledge. You prepare a clean list. The list is complete. Aristotle gives you a list. Nyaya system gives a list. Vaisesika gives a list. Sankhya gives a list. Leave alone Sankhya. Project now Nyaya and Vaisesika. Neat classification of the categories into 16. To give such a classification, how much of thinking must have gone into? Imagine. Say 200 BC or 100 BC or 100 AD. Doesn't matter. We are not in a position to prepare even a small list. Some principles with regard to admission. No, we are not able to do. Here is a system which has worked out in a neat way. All that has to be known, all the categories that are known, they are 16, nothing more. Nothing more, nothing less. But even though the categories have been listed, it has left to a lot of discussion among the philosophers. I will just refer to one discussion. I will stop. Pramana and Pramaya. I will initiate the discussion problem. I will take it up in the afternoon. Pramana, first Pramaya. There is such a thing called a Pramana, source of knowledge. There is such a thing called a Pramaya, an object of knowledge. So Pramana is one category, Pramaya is another category. Pramana is something that is known. Only known things can be listed. Can I prepare a list in which things unknown are there? No. Pramana is something that is known. If it is not known, how can it be in the list, first item in the list? It is known. And anything that is known is Pramaya. Definition, what is the definition of Pramaya? An object which is known, a principle which is known, a future which is known is Pramaya. This table is known, it's Pramaya. This writing instrument is known, Pramaya. The whiteness is known, Pramaya. We belong to a class of rational beings, Pramaya. So anything that is known is Pramaya. Pramana, that is also known. Is it known or not known? It should be known because it is listed. If it is known, it is Pramaya. So if Pramana itself becomes a Pramaya, when Pramana itself becomes a Pramaya, then how can you make a distinction between Pramana and Pramaya, Pramana, Pramaya and all that one? This is a question not asked by me here. It is a question that has been raised by Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna is challenging the Nyayika who talks about Pramana Pramaya distinction. Pramana Pramaya distinction. First, in the list Pramana, there is a list Pramaya and so on. Nagarjuna asks a question, please tell me. You have made a distinction between pramana and prameya. This is one category, that is another category. Now take pramana. Is pramana known or not known? You have to say it is known. It is known, therefore it is prameya. So what you call pramana itself is prameya. There is no difficulty with regard to prameya. With regard to prameya, we will ask the question, how do you know that prameya, any prameya, through a pramana? That means, first of all, the distinction is not such a clear-cut distinction between the two. Clear-cut distinction, this is one thing, this is another thing. The market vendor says, sir, this is one thing. The vendaka, this is brinjal, don't mix up. Similarly, you should have, they have done that, pramana, prameya, and so on. In the Suklamratham Kutumbode problem Varadhangram. Nagarjuna. Now, let me examine very closely your classification, finally to show that no classification is possible. That is his aim. He constructs a kind of a dialectical argument to show that no thesis can be established. He raises difficulties. More about that we will consider in the afternoon. And then proceed. Pramana prameya vibhaga. Pramana prameya distinction. Is that justified? Yes, Nagarjuna, no. Nyaya says yes. That is the debate. And look at the Indian tradition. Is it dogmatic? No. It provides scope for free dialogue. What Habermas wants. We want dialogue. In the dialogue, you and I, the two persons are at the equal stage, at the equal status. You give a proposition, it will be considered. He will give a counter proposition, consider that one. That kind of a debate has taken place. How can Indian philosophy be dogmatic, authoritative? No.